Eventually, with Saul at the helm as the first king of Israel, there will be yet other calamities and other problems. This man will be more so become a man who starts off good, will become more so about himself rather than God. In his rebellion, in his stubbornness, in his disobedience, God will eventually reject him. When God rejects him, he has another person in line. God will send the prophet Samuel to go to the house of this person whom he has lined up. And there, when Samuel goes, Samuel will interview several of the sons of Jesse, should we say, and neither of these are the ones whom God has chosen. Finally, there is a young, ruddy young man, a man who's attending sheep, and he ends up being the one that God has chosen. And most likely, Samuel would never have seen this without a word of counsel from God. God says to Samuel, I don't look at things like men look at things. I don't look at it. I don't look at the countenance. I don't look at the outer part of the man. But what I look at is his heart. I look at his lab. I look at his lavav. I look at his thoughts, his inclinations, his desires. I look at whether or not he craves after me. This is what I look after. And so here comes David. This is the person. David will be anointed with oil, and yet it's not time for him to take the throne. How many of you in here realize that when God has an appointment, if you are born again, you are anointed? And how many of you realize that when God has an appointment for your life, you have just put yourself on the front lines of the enemy? How many of you realize that when you finally recognize that you are anointed, and perhaps when you don't recognize you're anointed, if you are anointed, Satan will put up an assault, not only to cause you to fail at your quest, but to destroy you in any way possible. This is what David will go through before he ever takes the throne. And once he's on the throne, the war does not end. How do you handle something when you know that God has graced you, God has anointed you, God has gifted you for a particular task, and you find yourself with opposition on every end? How do you go through something when you find that not only is your enemy the one that is not of your nationality, but you have an enemy who has come right to your front door? If you're ever going to stand against the adversity that will come in your life when you're moving toward the purpose of God, you must be emboldened. And I'm not speaking about being emboldened by people, because the same people who claim to have your back, in many cases, those are the people who came to you for your help. So what I'm speaking of is being emboldened by the Lord. As we continue in this teaching, the encouragement of the Lord, today I want to come from the subject, emboldened in the midst of distress. Emboldened in the midst of distress. Saul knows that David is going to take the throne. He knows that he has been anointed. And yet, he looks to destroy what God has anointed. His son Jonathan, who would be the crown prince or heir to the throne, even recognizes that the throne belongs to David. And Saul's very own blood will help David to escape from a sure death. As David ventures on, David will eventually pay the priest a visit. David will eat of the shewbread. But David also has a need for a weapon. The sword of Goliath, the Philistine giant which David slew, happens to be there. David gets this sword, and he ends up going into the camp of the Philistines. He goes to Gath. The sword is recognized, and eventually this causes him to recognize who this man is. Is this not the one whom they've said, Saul has killed his thousands, and David his tens of thousands? David finds himself in a distressful situation. So David will feign. He will fake as though he has lost his mind. It's something about what you will do to salvage your life in the midst of serious adversity. It's something about what you will do in the midst of a situation of life and death. But watch this. All of this is happening. David sees it. There's a crisis. But then the word says, and David, but David. They want to kill David, but David encouraged himself in the Lord. I don't care what's going on around you. I don't care what people are saying about you. I don't care what schemes are being hatched towards you. If there is a crisis, you need to encourage yourself in the Lord. What are you talking about, Dozier? Encourage yourself. Well, this word encourage, it comes from two words. It comes from two words, in and courage. It means to place courage on the inside. Your Hebrew word would be the word hazak. And this is saying there's something that you need to seize. There's something that you need to grab. There's something that you need to conquer. And the only way that you're going to do it is to tie yourself up with God. So what he does is he does not say, I'm better than this. I'm bigger than this. I'm stronger than this. I can do this. I can do that. He doesn't do that. He encourages himself in God. God, I need you to do something for me now. He said, I cried to you, O Lord. I said, you are my refuge and my portion in the land of the living. Attend to my cry, for I am brought very low. I am brought very low. Deliver me, rescue me, save me from my persecutors, for they are stronger than I am. When you encourage yourself in the Lord, see, sometimes we can be so successful and things can be going so well when we're in Christ until we remember we're saved. But in truth, rhetoric is all we use, and we're really not depending on God. Every now and then, you may need some type of calamity in your life just so that you can know that it's God who keeps you where you are. I have to decide that I'm going to run on one or the other. I am going to run on the arm of man or the grace of God. See, grace will always fill every capacity that's needed. When David is encouraged, it is the grace of God that steps up in his life and gives him the strength that he needs to make it. You're going to get back everything that they stole from you. Now, can I help you here? Because I know you've heard a lot of those messages. I'm going to get what the devil stole from me. But the thing is, you have to have had something if he stole it. And you have to specifically know what you're going after. There's some things we say, and there's nothing more than hype. But I know what he took. He took my wife, took my sons, they took my daughters, and they want to know, are we going to get them back? They took my cattle. God says everything that they took. I would like to think that I've lived long enough to know something. I would like to think that I've had enough mistakes in life that have been corrected by God to know something. I would like to think that I have trusted God and tried God and gone through trials enough to know the outcome of enduring to the end. And yet, there's still more that I can grab. It's a sad thing to be like David's mighty men who are not yet mighty and not know how impotent you are.